the Soviet Union, better known as the mustache-twirling villain of the 20th century. When hearing about this country, your mind probably goes to Ushankas, repression and famine. Well, that's not what this video is about. This video is about some of the more weird and wacky aspects of the Soviet Union. One of the key promises of Lenin's revolution was an end to Russia's disastrous involvement in the First World War. So, after grabbing power, they immediately opened peace negotiations with the Central Powers. When you're the first communist nation in the world, you want to make some statements. That's why the Bolshevik delegation insisted on bringing a peasant to the negotiations. The only problem was, they forgot the peasant. So they just went to the nearest village and picked some random old guy off the streets. So what do you think happened next? Well, the answer might not surprise you. Upon realizing that the wine and spirits were in fact free, he got completely wasted, puked all over the table and kept on referring to the Soviet delegation as his masters instead of his comrades. Skipping a couple of decades, it's 1942 and the Soviet Union and Germany are in a rather heated kerfuffle. Due to the old reliable tactic of having more men than the enemy had bullets, the scales were slowly tipping in favor of the Soviets. But the Germans still had a fair chance to turn communism into communism. So the Soviets needed an ace up their sleeve. The world had witnessed firsthand the success of German blitzkrieg tactics and the success of paratroop operations like the invasion of Crete. These new tactics gave Soviet engineer Oleg Anatov a great idea. Just like peanut butter and chocolate go together amazingly, so should airborne operations and heavily armored machinery. And a couple of months later, this monstrosity was born, the Anatov A-40. This metal miscarriage was so heavy that the entire tank had to be stripped down because otherwise the heavy bomber towing this abomination couldn't even take off. This means that if this tank was used, you'd have a tank with no crew, no ammunition, no fuel and not even headlights. All of these things just had to be airdropped separately. And even then this affront to God was just too heavy, because during its only flight the bomber towing it had to ditch the tank to avoid crashing. Moving on, the Soviet Union was obviously a communist paradise where everybody was equal and happy, free from the shackles of capitalism. A country where after a glorious day of fruitful labor in service of the collective, you could sit down in front of your TV and watch advertisements? You'd think that in a centrally planned economy, with no competing businesses, there wouldn't be any need for advertisements. And you're right. Advertisements in the Soviet Union served a very different purpose than those in the West. While in the evil West, marketing is done to convince you to spend your salary on the newest thing, in the Soviet Union advertising was done in the name of a much more noble cause: state propaganda. TV ads weren't meant to convince you to buy a product. No, they were meant to show the people the successes of socialism by dangling all these products over their head. Products which the average Soviet citizen could never hope to own, by the way. Because these ads didn't really have to sell anything, creators got a lot more creative freedom compared to their capitalist counterparts. This led to some rather interesting advertisements. Take for example this absolutely bonkers ad for minced chicken meat. God, that's just straight up nightmare fuel. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.